Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Seton Hall University. Come see what great minds can do. Wells Fargo, PSE&G, committed to providing safe, reliable energy now and in the future. Atlantic Health System, building healthier communities. And by Johnson & Johnson. Promotional support provided by Insider NJ. And by AM 970 The Answer.
This is One-on-One. I'm an equal American just like you are.
The jobs of tomorrow are not the jobs of yesterday.
Look at this. You got this?
Here it is, man. Look at that.
Life without dance is boring.
I don't care how good you are or how good you think you are, there is always something to learn.
Do you enjoy talking politics?
No.
People call me because they feel nobody's paying attention.
Our culture, I don't think, has ever been tested the way it's being tested right now.
Such a good question. High five.
Hi, I'm Steve Adubato. Welcome to a very special series we call Gone But Not Forgotten. You know, back in 2002, I sat down with the late, great governor of New York, Mario Cuomo. Since then, we've interviewed his son, Chris, over at CNN. You know his son, Andrew, who's the governor of New York. But back in 2002 at NJPAC, I remember sitting down with Mario Cuomo. For years, I would say, and I continue to say, the most compelling and interesting interview I've ever conducted, and it wasn't because of me. It's because of Mario Cuomo. Even though it was 2002, what he had to say about America, about politics, our political system, government, and the role of citizens, more important than ever. So even though we're going back into the vault to look at this program at NJPAC, this is, in fact, New York Governor Mario Cuomo, gone but not forgotten.
We are honored to be joined by the 52nd governor of the great state of New York, Mario Cuomo, elected in 1982, again in 1986, and again in 1990. Governor, great to have you here at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. By the way, you were walking around with the CEO, Larry Goldman, right before we got started. Tell us about this place.
It is, well, I was stunned by it, actually. I knew that it was here. I hadn't seen it. The architecture is magnificent. The room is dramatic and beautiful. And, you know, this notion of Newark is a deteriorated part of the old Northeast, which it would be easy to fool people still with that notion, people who hadn't been here. But Newark looks very lively to me, especially here in this center. I think it's wonderful. And if you do an arena, which you're going to do for the Nets, which are beating the Knicks up regularly, I'm sorry to report. So it's exciting. You know, there was a time in the 70s, and I was just in public service for the first time in the mid-70s, where there was serious talk about abandoning the Northeast. The McGill Commission report, I'll never forget it, said in effect that the old infrastructure, you know, the old architecture, the old unplanned city was a drain on the nation, and you should move everything to Houston, you know, everything to the Midwest, and start over. So let's not invest in the Northeast. Let it kind of attrit out of existence. And then there were people who stood up and said, no, that doesn't make any sense at all. What you've got to do is revitalize the Northeast. We still haven't managed to do it in all the downtown areas and all the old cities of the Northeast, but you can come to Newark and see that it's working pretty well in some places.
Let's talk about across the river. You're born and raised in Queens?
I love New Jersey, I really do, because my mother and father came from Provincia di Salerno in 1927. Nucera Inferiore, a little town at the foot of a mountain, Tramonti, the place at the top of the mountain where my mother was. My father was from down below. They got together, lied to their parents about not wanting to come to America, got married, and promptly came to America, and came to Jersey City, New Jersey.
Jersey City?
Absolutely, where my father was a laborer, ditch digger, and helped build, I think it's Holy Rosary Church. I may have the name of the church wrong, but years ago, a congressman from New Jersey called me up and said, is your father's name like a woman's name? I said, Andrea.
It wasn't Frank Orini, was it? He's the congressman who used to represent that area.
It may even have been Frank. And he said, there's a picture in the paper, the 75th anniversary of this church. It has a picture of the laborers who worked on it, and there's a guy by the name of... And I asked my mother about it. She says, that's your father. Jesus. And so we have that picture at home somewhere. So I love New Jersey. New Jersey has now moved way ahead of New York in terms of wealth, way ahead of Connecticut. And that's an interesting development. Now after 9/11, you've inherited a lot of our best business people,
right,
and some of our best citizens who came over from downtown and who probably will stay here. New Jersey, it seems to me, over the years, is, I of course I got along very well with Tommy Kaine and Jimmy Florio, and I didn't know Governor Whitman quite as well, but I know the state well, and it's really doing extremely well.
If you've just tuned in, you were listening to the 52nd governor of the Empire State, Mario Cuomo. He is here at the New Jersey Performing Arts Center. He's here for a speech for New Jersey Policy Perspective, headed up by our good friend John Shore, and it's great to have you here, Governor. Let me try this. You mentioned 9/11. So many different ways to look at it. Just tell us your own personal perspective as we tape this program six and a half months after.
Well, the 9/11 obviously was a terrible, shocking moment for the whole country, and especially for those of us who happened to be walking the streets of New York City that morning and saw it happen, and saw the smoke, and felt the panic, and the, not the panic, but the anxiety and the confusion. And it changed things, obviously, in a lot of different ways. The first thing it did, I think, one of the first things was to tell every American, listen, you thought you were invulnerable. You really did. You didn't think about it a lot, but you never figured it could happen to you. You never thought they'd have the nerve to do it. Well, they not only had the nerve, they had the ability to do it, and they didn't even have to try hard. They didn't even need a weapon. And they killed thousands of you. Imagine what they could do next time.
Had you ever thought about this before?
Well, the people who built the World Trade Center literally thought about a plane smashing into the World Trade Center, and in its design took into account the force of a plane as they then calculated it. Now, I don't think they were thinking of a terrorist plane. I don't think anybody ever thought of that. They were thinking about a plane that was somehow misguided, lost its way, and would come. I had my office in the World Trade Center. Did I ever think that terrorism could bring down the towers? No. Even after '93, when we had an office there and they did explode a bomb and kill 6 people in the basement of the World Trade Center, after that, the sense of invulnerability was even greater, because now you took your shot,
right,
and it failed almost pathetically from a lot of people's point of view. So, no, I don't think I really had an awareness. If you asked me at the time as governor, or even as a private citizen, Mario, do you think it's possible? Logic would have said, yes, theoretically it's possible. But no, I don't expect it to happen. And I think one of the reasons you would have made that mistake is you would have been thinking in terms of nations. See, you would have been thinking in terms of no nation would dare do it to us. And no nation will dare do it to us, because they know that if a nation, an identifiable group with a flag, were to do that to us, we would wipe them out, which we will have the capacity to do. But this wasn't a nation. This wasn't something that you could target. This wasn't a group of people who represented a place that can be bombed. This is maybe a dozen or so of a million mad people who call themselves Islamic for the most part, but who are really deviant and practice a distorted religion that is built on killing. So you didn't anticipate that kind of, when you think naturally in patterns of, well, would the Russians do it to us? And the answer there is still, no, you're safe when it comes to nations.
No paradigm that we could have turned to.
We didn't, it never occurred to us.
Let me ask you, Governor, at a time like this, and again, as I said to you before we get on the air, we'll air this program for many, many months, because hopefully nothing will be dated in what we're saying. In a time of war, Does the dynamic change, or do the dynamics change politically in terms of criticizing the President of the United States? I mean, have you thought much about that?
Oh, sure. I think about it a whole lot. I talk about it a whole lot. I'll talk about it today. I'll talk about unity. I'll talk about the song, America the Beautiful. I'll talk about this refrain now that says we're all in this together. I was around for the Second World War. My brother served twice in the Second World War, and then he had to go back to Korea. I missed the service because of my age, but I experienced the war. Never saw togetherness like that. Everybody, it was no longer black, white, Jew, Gentile, even male, female. Everybody was in the game. You know, listen, they're trying to kill us. They're evil. Tojo, Mussolini, Hitler. These are bad people, and we have to stop them. You have that again now. The president's fond of talking about our unity, but it's a peculiar kind of unity. It's a unity, an unusual unity. It's built on patriotism. It's built on fear. It is really a kind of expression of the survival instinct. You're unified because you're frightened. You came together in the Second World War, and now because you know they're trying to kill you. And you know way down deep that you have to gather your strength to resist them. And still it's beautiful. But you'll notice that in the interstices, you know, in the spaces between the crises, you lose that unity. Why? Because now your survival becomes individual. Now it's me against you and him, so hey, don't come to me and ask me for my tax dollars to go for your benefit. No, we're not. In the spaces between the crises, we are not a terribly united people. We are very fragmented. Why? For a number of reasons. One is we were created in a fragmentary way. We're not, we don't have homogeneity. We have diversity. We were built with different fragments from all over the world.
Italian Americans.
Anything
wrong with that?
No, nothing at all. We have 187 ethnicities in New York City. You have almost as many here in Newark and in New Jersey. Nothing wrong with it. It was beautiful. It's both a blessing, it's also a burden, because differences breed alienation. You know, if you know, you look different, you smell different, your food is different, your language is different, your religion is different. In animals, you see, they are cautious, afraid, and human beings are like that too. So that's one reason that we don't have a whole lot of unity. The other is our Constitution, the way we were formed. It wasn't an instrument or a design that encouraged harmony and synergism, except for bringing the 13 together and making them a nation. We put the emphasis on individuality and freedom and liberty, all of which is wonderful.
And messy.
It may be our greatest strength, is our right to be individuals. The market system, the free enterprise system, which says you get out there and you work, and there are winners and losers, baby. And that's the way this game is. For over 100 years, you didn't even, as a federal government, as a nation, believe that you had to take care of sick people. There was no Medicaid, no Medicare. You didn't care about, well, slaves you had for most of that century. You had women in an inferior position. Workers, you could work every day of your life and die poor. And if you lost your hand in a machine, the federal government didn't think that there was any kind of obligation for the rest of us to come to your assistance. That didn't happen until the Depression. And Roosevelt, who had to invent a new kind of America that interpolated into the market system and individuality and all that independence that was being encouraged, an additional notion that says, hey, listen, for us to make it here, we're going to have to learn to share. We're going to have to learn some more about mutuality. And now, of course, we're learning that globally. Bush is a very good example of that, President Bush. He campaigns in 2000 telling you, in effect, that he's going to take the United States and withdraw from the rest of the world. And people criticized him for that in the campaign. Remember, he said, well, I'm not going to be in the Environmental Pact, and I'm not going to let these guys push us around, and the heck with the United Nations. Then all of a sudden you get hit by terrorists. You need to go to Afghanistan to fight, and the first thing you decide is, I need Pakistan, I need Turkey, I need India, I need North Korea. Therefore, North Korea and India and Pakistan, with your nuclear weapons, you can keep them. Pakistan, I'll give you a few $billion. You start doing business. You start learning mutuality and sharing. But no, we're not good at sharing except at crisis time.
You know, as I listen to you talk about, I mean, I ask you a question about how together we are, and you do what you do so well. You bring lots of different, seemingly disparate ideas together. I was there, along with thousands of others, maybe 20,000 plus, in 1984. I was a delegate to that Democratic National Convention. I was there when you gave that speech, the speech. Can you remember it right now in your mind? Can you picture yourself there?
Oh, yes.
Okay. You're asked this 1,000 times, but I would be remiss if I didn't put it out there. Along with thousands of others, I was saying, you know, I wasn't a journalist at the time. I was in politics, and looked at you and I thought, geez, Mario Cuomo, I'm Italian-American. Mario, this is 1 in a million chance to have, quote, one of our own, if I can say it that way, an Italian-American. Short version, why you didn't take the shot?
Oh.
Is there a short version?
No, there isn't. If you're talking about why I didn't run for president.
Because you got so many people saying, God, you know, wouldn't it have been great? I know that feels great to hear, but...
No, it didn't. It was always disconcerting to me.
But you understand.
How can I give you a short version? In 1988, I was first in the polls, and people said, run for president, run for president. 1991, I was first in the polls, Democratic polls. People said, run for president, run. 88, I didn't because Mike Dukakis came over from Boston and said, look, Mario, I want to run for president, but if you do, I can't. You know, what are you going to do? I said, if you want to run for president, go ahead. You've been a governor longer than I. You've been a better, or proven to be a better governor than I so far, because I haven't had the experience you've had. I think you'd be a better candidate. And frankly, unless I was some kind of egomaniac, which I'm not, if I conclude you're better than I am at this job, then why should I pursue it? I mean, that would be an act of prostitution, really. I mean, it would be wrong. That took care of 88. 91 was a whole different question. In 91, I hadn't thought about it because I made the mistake in 1990 of running for a third term. My son Andrew said to me, don't run for a third term.
We should make it clear that Andrew was really your chief political operative. And
although he was very young.
Ego, I don't know if that's
well, he wasn't
advisor.
An advisor,
right.
And I loved him, and he was very smart, and I trusted him, and I loved sharing things with him. He said no. He said no.
He said don't do it?
No. He said don't run for governor.
Right.
Run for president.
92.
In 90, he said in 92 they're going to need a president. Skip the election for governor because we're having a recession. You're going to be in trouble. My approach was, Andrew, we had 8 great years, but now they're going to need me more than ever because we are in a recession. It is going to be tough. It is going to be difficult to get through it. You will be unpopular. But if I say no to being governor now, after having 8 good years, then what does that say about me as a person? I'm going to say no to being governor because I'm going to be unpopular, because they won't like me as much anymore. But I'm in the best position to help them now. So I ran. I won. That was the year that Bill Bradley got frightened in an election.
Christy Whitman, 1990.
Christy Whitman came
unknown.
very close because things were bad. And when things are bad, the incumbents suffer. So I was stuck with a tough situation, a bad budget.
Bad budget.
Despite that, and people forget this in 91, when people came and said, why aren't you running? And there must be reasons, and there must be dire reasons. I finally said, okay, I'll take a look at it. And I did. And after about a month and a half, I said, everything is lined up for me to run. All the Republicans, my Republicans, because they dominated one house then as they do now in the state legislature, I said, all they have to do is give me a budget. Let me make the state budget, I'm out of here. I thought for sure they would, because I was sure that George Bush, the original, felt that an ethnic from the Northeast, a guy with a name like Mario Cuomo, that's an easy mark all over this country, especially down south. Bob Novak, had written a column in which he said, Cuomo can't win. There are no Marios down south.
Were you offended by that?
Oh, sure, and I told him. But he's not like that. He's a good guy, basically, and he just, I don't know what he was trying to say, but the way it came out, if you're an Italian, you know, and an identifiable Italian, you can't win. And of course, I don't believe that's true, but I did think the Republicans thought it was true. So I thought they would encourage me to run. They didn't. They didn't make the budget. They wouldn't make the budget. As a matter of fact, they said they wouldn't make the budget until all the Democratic primaries were over. And that's what happened that year. So there was an explanation there. But let me depart from the specifics just for a moment. I won't tell you the name of the person because he's extremely well known, and he was the head of maybe the greatest paper in the world. And at an editorial board meeting, he said to me once, you know, I don't think you should really think about running because you don't have that fire in the belly. And I said, listen, so-and-so, show me a guy with fire in the belly and I'll spritz him with seltzer. I said, because I don't want a guy with fire in the belly. What does that mean? That means he wants this so much, or she wants it so much, so passionately, that she'll do anything to win. Is that because she believes or he believes that they're the best in the world to run the United States of America? They're so much better than all the other candidates that you need them? I don't think so. It probably means they want it for themselves, for egotistical reasons. That's exactly the wrong reason. You should run only if you think, look, I'm better than Steve, I'm better than Charlie, I'm better than her. I can do it, I know I can do it, I have an obligation to do it. I know it's going to be hard, I know I may fail. That's the way you should. That's why I ran for governor. In the year I ran for governor, 1982, they said it couldn't happen. I said, you're wrong, it will happen, and it did. But I also said, if Paul Curran, who was a Republican, still a friend of mine, if he is the Republican candidate, I won't run against him because I think he's better than I am.
But Governor, you know, as people watching this, they're saying, wait a minute, that doesn't sound at all like what we would perceive a quote-unquote politician to be thinking. So-and-so might be better than I am. You're actually evaluating how you rank against these other people, whether it's for the presidency or the governorship.
Right.
So this fire in the belly thing is mostly about ego.
I would think so. What else is it?
Okay.
What else is it?
So let me ask you this.
It's not St. Paul, you know. I mean, even St. Paul didn't have fire in the belly. It took lightning in the tush to get him off his horse, you know, and to make him from Saul to Paul. So, I was never hit by lightning. Yeah.
Well, but let's try this. The nature of politics. Nature of politics. By the way, you mind going just a few minutes longer than we were going to go?
Whatever you say.
Okay, here we go. The nature of politics. As we do this program, your son is involved in a campaign. Again, we could date it, you know, we don't know what's going to happen in the primary, but here's the deal. A lot of people say that really good, talented people, you don't want them involved in the political process. It's too nasty, it's ugly, it's dirty, it's personal, rotten. You say?
Don't be a lawyer. No, you can say that about almost anything. Almost anything. Now, you have a lot of experience yourself. You know, you're a very smart guy, very well educated. You know about politics. You know about this business. You know how tough it can be in a free enterprise system, in a market system. Look at what's happening in television now. You have one school that says, you know, we should all be Bill Moyers. We should give the truth and do it elegantly and nicely, et cetera. And everybody should listen to us because we're smart and correct and useful and productive in terms of intellectualizing and nurturing the spirit of the country. And we have another people say, I'm tired of that. You know, forget about that. I want to see a nice picture. I want to see a family that's foolish. I want to see a ball game. I want to be entertained. And now they go after Ted Koppel, right? And they say, Ted Koppel, yeah, you're terrific, you're important, you're cerebral, you're all these things. We don't need you because we want somebody who's entertaining. That's a tough way to live. That's a tough business to be in. When you think, my goodness, I want to be Ted Koppel. And they say to you, no, sorry. Or you get to a certain age and they say, yeah, we know you know more than most people. And yeah, but you've lost your hair and you're a little bit old. And the people we want to attract are 42 years old and spend money like crazy. And they're not interested in you. So it's not just politics. Politics is a kind of concentrated version of the rest of life, but it reflects all the weaknesses that we have in almost any occupation. If you want to get to the top, it's a struggle. There are people who are going to throw roadblocks in front of you, sometimes unfairly. Politics is the same way, with this difference. In politics, you announce to the society, I'm ready for you to judge me. And as a matter of fact, what is right and wrong will be determined by you guys in a polling place.
Yeah.
Now, not my conscience. Even if I know you're dead wrong and you're stupid about what you're doing, I accept the proposition that when you say I go down, I go down. And
Governor,
that's that.
why don't we do this? I'm going to end this particular program. Hopefully we'll just keep the tapes rolling and just get a little bit more. I want to thank Governor Mario Cuomo, the 52nd governor of the great state of New York. We're going to stay here and talk a little bit more with him. Thank you for watching.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation. Funding has been provided by the Healthcare Foundation of New Jersey, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Seton Hall University, Wells Fargo, PSE&G, Atlantic Health System, and by Johnson & Johnson. Promotional support provided by Insider NJ and by AM 970 The Answer. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.
What can great minds do?
While at Seton Hall, I interned with the Superior Court of New Jersey, and that inspired me to go to law school.
I am a physics and civil engineering major, and I want to work on infrastructure in underdeveloped countries.
I'm the news director at one of the top college radio stations in the country.
I'm working with my professor on research that could help athletes during sudden cardiac events.
I started my own business, Classic Soccer Cleats, and I just sold it to a company in England.
Come see for yourself what great minds can do.